video, I am going to speak to you about India growth potential, how to get 10 trillion economy by 2030. Agenda for this presentation is number 1, can India hit 10 trillion economy by 2030? It's a big topic nowadays because Prime Minister Narendra Modi talking about it, lot of industry leaders talking about it, many are pessimistic, some are optimistic. So we'll address that. Number 2, I'm going to speak about is the 4 growth strategies for India. One, which will be my main focus, will be the export driven growth. There are other 3 strategies I'll be talking. Second one is the China growth model, the case study. The reason I want to talk about China because China in 2006 their GDP was 2.7 trillion. In just 7 years, in 2013, they did hit 10 trillion economy. So China did it in 7 years. Can India also do in 8 years? So that's the reason I want to share with you a case study, how they did it, so that we can learn from it. The fourth item I want to discuss is the India export model. What India needs to do to drive the export to other countries. Let's look into the landscape of India economy. As you can see, India is about 3 trillion economy in 2021 and it grew by 9.2%. Other parameters are shown. We have big number of automotive brands, many hundreds of international companies have invested in India. What are the major exports, imports are discussed in this slide. Let's look into what are the most leaders talking about, right? Rahul Bajaj, chairman of Bajaj Group, he says that there is no demand and no private investment in India. So where will growth come from? Will it come from heavens? So and somehow Rahul ji passed away month of February 2022. So next is the chairman of L&T, Mr. M. Nayak. He said that no private investment. Industries are shifting to Thailand and Vietnam, but not to India. Why? Adi Godrej, chairman of Godrej Group, he said that there is massive poverty in India, and that's really affecting the growth of Indian economy in a major way. So how do we address the poverty issue? If we don't have a buying power, how can the economy will grow? And several of them here, Mukesh Ambani, chairman of Reliance, he's very optimistic about India hitting 10 trillion economy. Chairman of Tata Sons, Chandrasekaran, he says that we need to consider the economy growth in a 5-year horizon, not 1 year, because it doesn't really give us the result in terms of what's the really driver and how much it can grow. Mr. Kumar Birla, chairman of Aditya Birla Group, he said that Indian companies need to be accountable to global standards to compete in this global economy, right? So big question mark, can India hit 10 trillion economy by 2030? As you have seen, many players are very pessimistic about it. They think there has to be demand to drive the growth, right? India took almost 40 years to add 2.5 trillion economy since 1980. Now we are thinking, can we add 3 times of that, which is 7.5 trillion in 8 years? That's really a big challenge, right? So what we need to do is we need to target the global market, not the India market for the demand, right? Because China, South Korea, Japan, Germany, many countries grew by export. So we need to look into the export market to tap into the demand. So before I speak about the India growth strategies, let me briefly introduce myself. I am CEO of Lucintel, which is a management consulting firm based in Dallas, Texas. We have global offices around the world. I am the author of 2 books and thought leader. My thought leadership articles have been published in the Wall Street Journal, Financial Times, and my one book is the Innovation Engine for Growth. It's a business book. Another is the technology book on advanced materials technology I have written. and you can see those in the Amazon.com. I have been helping a lot of Fortune 500 companies, multinational companies in last 20 years, offering strategic growth consulting for them, M&A opportunities for them. And my education, I was basically born and brought up in a small village in India near Raipur. Then I went to IIT Kanpur, then Concordia University, then University of Michigan in the US. And then I worked for General Motors and other companies. Let's look into what are the four-prong growth strategies for India. Number one is the export-led growth, right? How can we increase our export from $500 billion to almost $2 trillion? I'll be talking about that. That will be the major focus of this presentation. Then there is another opportunity for India is import substitution growth, right? We do import significant amount of products. What can we substitute and make it made in India? Third is the FDI-led growth. We need to attract foreign investments. And fourth is the domestic growth. What can we do? Even develop low-cost products for low-income people. So let's look into the three growth scenarios for India. In normal scenario, which is typically 6 to 7% growth, which we have been seeing in the last 30-40 years, we can hit about 5 trillion economy by 2030. But if we have to hit 10 trillion economy, we need to grow at 14.3%, which is highly ambitious. Let's look into China versus India. In last almost 30 years, in 1990, GDP of India and China was almost same. But somehow in 1990 onwards, they started doubling, tripling their export, which India could not do. We missed the boat that time. So China export grew at 14.3% average. The GDP grew by about from 361 to 1211, like 1.2 trillion. Now it's running at 14.73 trillion in 2020. China growth model, if you look into, it's export driven. In 7 years, China GDP grew from 2.7 trillion in 2006 to 10 trillion in 2013. There was a major shift from agriculture to value-added products manufacturing. China had significant government investment in private companies. They had a very good government policies to drive the export market and economy, and they offered subsidies to promote manufacturing and export in a big manner. So if India has to grow, the big mantra for success is export, 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 which we are not doing good in last few years. We need to really double, triple, quadruple in next few years, then only we can grow. Export is critical because for every $1 earned in export, it increases the GDP by 4 to 5 times due to the ripple effect. So if India can increase export from 480 billion in 2021 to 2.5 trillion in next 8 years, India can hit $10 trillion economy. Let me give you an example. Apple sells cell phone to global market to drive their revenue. Indian companies should target global market for demand. So tell me some of the products India can make which can dominate the global market, like Apple cell phone. Do you think any area we can really shine in the global market where all around the globe companies and countries depend on India for that product? What could be that? We need to think in that direction. I personally visited China several times to conduct due diligence on companies to protect investors' money. Investors such as Carlyle and a lot of PE firms, they hired Lucintel for market entry strategy and due diligence. So when I went to China to investigate companies to identify the red flags and benchmark them against the world-class companies, you know, my background was technology assessment and market due diligence for these target companies. So I did all those studies. What I found, interestingly, that in most companies, the Chinese government had more than 50% share in the company. That means it was government money putting in the companies so that they can set up a plant and they can grow the business. It was very critical. So I will be sharing those insights, what China did to drive their economy. So here is the slide which talks about the export, how China has done versus the India. You can see China, their export was 253 billion in 2000. It went to 1.6 trillion in 2010. That was remarkable. India was only 338 between 1990 to 2010, in 20 years. That's where we missed the boat. And if you look into the right hand side, if you compare India export versus China, there's a big difference. You know, and only in IT and BPO type services, India is ahead. Otherwise, in most segments, they are behind. So here is the model I can talk about, which I found during this study was, for every $1 from export, it increases the GDP by 4 to 5 times. Because if you plot India versus China on their export to GDP ratio, typically for more than 1 trillion economy, it's roughly around 20 to 21, 22 in that range. That means it's almost 1/5 export is. So if export can grow at a certain number, GDP will grow 4 to 5 times. That's the model. And this is a very important thing to understand, because if government can invest to drive the growth for export, that money can do GDP growth by 4 to 5 times, because government puts money in the infrastructure development, road construction, all kinds of things, but the effect of that in GDP is not that strong compared to export, because when a company gets some export dollar, they have to buy raw materials and different products from other company, and they have to give the money to their employees also. The other company also buys products and shares money to the employee. Employees buy house, car. So that's how the ripple effect works, and the GDP grows in a 4 to 5 times fashion. So it's very critical. So if you look into the different other countries like Germany, the export revenue is almost 46% of the GDP. Same thing as South Korea. And India share in the global export market is only 1.5%, and China has almost 15% in 2020. So here is the fundamental. If India can grow the export at 10% and hit 1.2 trillion by 2030, then the GDP will be 6.6 trillion. If India grows the export by 15% to almost 2 trillion export, then GDP will be almost 10 trillion. If India can have export of 4.5 trillion, India GDP will be close to 23 trillion. So that's again based on the model I suggested earlier. So India position in export. So major sectors where India exports, machinery, plastics, optical, photos, vehicles. India has very insignificant number of export value compared to China and other countries. And the big question which most of the industry players are asking are, where is the demand? My friend, look into how much USA, China, Germany, Japan, UK buys every year, right? So this is the import, like US and all these countries do. And India share in this import business is 1 to 3%. There is a big opportunity. So you can see the demand by serving the global companies as well as the global market. Based on the competitive advantage, you can see that India has good competitive advantage in IT, BPO, precious stones, pharmaceuticals. So those are the areas we should focus on. These are the attractive opportunities. So right top corner are the attractive opportunities for India, and some of the low-hanging fruits based on competitive advantage and overall export value are shown here. And if you ask me how do we achieve this 2 trillion at high level, there could be multiple areas India can look into to drive the export market. At high level, if India can have 15% share in these different export sectors, which is shown here, from mineral fuels to precious stones, pharmaceuticals, IT, BPO, India can achieve almost 2 trillion, right? So right now we are not doing that great, but we have to drive that. Let's look into the China case study. It's important to understand what China did. So in order to compete with these multinationals, what's the key competitive advantage? See, every companies have certain competitive advantage, but at high level, what China did was they looked into that biggest competitive advantage is that money. If you have money, you can do a lot of things. You can hire talented people, you can invest in the plant and grow the economy. Hire the best and best consultants to help you drive the growth of your company. So that's what China did, and they started heavily investing in private companies, and they formed government companies since 1985, right? And main China competitive advantage was low labor cost, low energy cost, huge capital investment in technologies. So to identify the customers and to identify the right products at the right price, China approached big retailers in the US and European countries such as Walmart, Target, Home Depot, Lowe's, Sports Academy, Dick's Sporting Goods, Macy's, you name it. Each one of those retail giants, they carry thousands of products, right? Go to their website, identify the products you want to target, you know the price, go to these retailers and tell them that you can offer better quality product at better price, and they will take your business, right? So, and China also targeted B2B markets, and they visited exhibitions to understand product requirements and price, and they came back to the plant and developed these products and targeted all these different companies. And I know many of those what happened, because we have been tracking various industries and markets and applications, and we know how China has really taken away a lot of businesses from US companies and European companies. So you can see the several pictures, they have been targeting the badminton, to the gloves, to the bicycles, camping instruments, helmet, ladder, tools, you name it, they're present. Right? One example, you go to the Walmart, look into this badminton racket, many of you familiar with. Walmart sells 2 badminton racket, 2 shuttlecock at $7. That means these Chinese companies may be selling it at $2 to $3 because there is a shipping cost, there is a custom duty, plus Walmart has to make profit, right? So that means on average $2 to $3 for these 2 rackets and shuttles. Can anyone in India make that at $2 to $3? That means 150 rupees to 300 rupees. Very difficult to compete, my friend. So, but you choose your battleground to find out where you can really identify opportunities which can really beat Chinese products. For example, LG, Samsung, they know where to compete. They have chosen the high-end products. So you can choose the commodity products, high-end products, whatever you want to do. So the China growth mantra in last 20 years, what they did was, number one, big government investment. They borrowed money, they took a lot of loans, and invested heavily in private companies since 1985. And they also formed a lot of government companies. Number two, low labor cost. China has wonderful population, and they shifted millions and millions of people from agriculture, villages to cities to manufacture goods, right? Can India do that? There was a farmers movement, Kishan Andolan. Government wanted to make some changes in that, but in China you cannot do that, right? It's an autocracy, so you can't have any movement or Andolan. But China, that's how China succeeded, right? The top president, they decide what to be done, job is done, right? Number three, government subsidies. Government gave significant subsidies, and they spent almost 20% of manufacturing expansion, right? Number four, productivity and innovations. China has, I would say, hundreds of programs for innovations. In the past, China just copied US products, European products, because R&D cost money. So there is no need to do innovations because you have to catch up, right? Catch up to the standard of US and Europe. Once you catch up, then you can drive the innovations. So now, honestly speaking, I see significant R&D being done by China in lot of areas, from drone to AI to you name it. They're really doing good, and India can be behind if we don't really invest heavily in R&D as well. Now let's look into the position of China versus India. China is ahead in terms of GDP, per capita income, export amount, literacy rate, agricultural productivity, FDI, in all the parameters. So let's look into the India export model, what it will be, right? And you have seen what the leaders are telling, that there is no demand, no private investment. So number one, what India has to do is we have to invest in the infrastructure and offer significant subsidies, right? Such as production tax credit and other subsidies to drive the export. Already India has a lot of subsidy programs, I would say a lot of schemes, but we need to really do better than that, and we need to invest in private companies in a big way. We need to, number two is the acquire foreign companies. We need to encourage private companies such as Tata, Reliance, Jindal, Arvind, Infosys, Wipro, many companies, hundreds of companies, to acquire and invest in US and European companies. That way you will have access to the customers, and then you can ship your products to the existing customers, right? That's very critical. China and Japan already doing it. Many countries are doing it, and we have been helping them to identify the right targets based on the areas you want to focus and based on the competitive advantage you need. And also we do a lot of investment thesis based on how and why a company can offer top line and bottom line growth for your company. So all of this we have been doing that. The third is the invest in the trading companies. India doesn't have trading companies like Japan has. Sumitomo, Mitsubishi, Sojitz, these are the giants in terms of trading companies. All they do is they have big salespeople based in US and Europe. They develop relationship with US companies and European companies, and they try to sell Japanese products. Because if you want to have a customer, your salespeople need to be close to the customer. You need to visit them, right? So these trading companies, that's what they do. So, and they also invest in Japanese companies and US companies, and they sell US products to Japan because they have a good network in Japan also, and they sell Japanese product to the US. Same thing we need to do, so that Indian companies can leverage this trading company's strength in the sales and sell the product. Number four, productivity and innovations. We need to really invest in technologies to create scale, develop programs for innovations, and we need to shift agriculture based people, farmers and other things to manufacturing, because unless we have a buying power from farmers and big the low income categories, we cannot grow, right? So we need to really identify how to transform this agricultural business to the manufacturing business. Because in India, as I said, I'm from a village, and when I visit my village, I talk to my buddies, friends, and I ask them, hey, how is your business, your agriculture business doing? They say that because of rain, there is a flood, drought, all kinds of things, and they hardly make money. Most of the farmers, they don't make money, right? So if you're not making money, you are running in loss, that means you don't know what you're doing, right? It's not right business for you. We need to really, if we have to compete in a global market, we need to do it as a business and drive the profitability, right? So running business in loss doesn't make sense. So for driving the export, India needs to target the retailers and distributors. I hardly see any product made in India in retail stores in the US and Europe. I do see LG products, Samsung products from Korea. I do see a lot of products from Japan. I do see plenty of Chinese products, especially in the Home Depots, Lowe's, Walmart, right? Like they dominate in commodity market. So like China, India has to target retailers, distributors, B2B markets for growth. There could be several low-hanging fruits. Let me give you one example of travel and tourism industry, right? Qatar Airways, Emirates, they disrupted the business class in the airline industry by offering best services and lower cost for the business class, right? And a lot of people started going by business class. Qatar, the revenue in 2019 was 14 billion. In Emirates, revenue was 25 billion. Air India revenue was 3.5 billion. Don't you think Air India can compete well with these companies? If you plan well, I think Air India can get almost 20 billion. How we can do that? Talk to the customers, what they want. Many of my friends, they prefer to go by Qatar, Emirates, Turkey Airways because of best quality service at one of the best price, right? Price and service matters. Can India offer similar quality service at lower price? We need to innovate in business class. One example is India. What it can do is, let's say you offer a luxury coach, right, aircraft from US to India. Generally it's 15-16 hours, right, non-stop. For long distance, you need a good leg room, good comfort, good service. So we need to attract that customer. So there should be just the premier economy and business class. Offer some restaurant facility in the back or somewhere in the aircraft. Offer unlimited foods to the passengers. And I would say that will be game changer ideas to leapfrog the competition, right? And India can do very good because already the demand is there. Indian people from USA and Europe for long distance, they will easily go after that, right? Not only India, see, customers don't care which airline. They're looking for the best price, best service, and best quality. So similarly, India can grow tourism by attracting foreigners. We have one of the oldest history in the world, my friend. We have lot of natural places, mountains, natural falls. We don't have anything close to Niagara Falls. We may have a very good falls in India, similar to Niagara Falls, but Niagara Falls attracts so many tourism. Why not India? We don't offer any boating ride. We don't offer any good picnic spots nearby. We don't do a good garden there. So people need to enjoy there. There should be yoga places in India where a lot of US people and European countries, they're interested to learn spirituality from India. So we have plenty of opportunities. We need to really invest and identify what customers want and offer those services, right? For example, Hawaii, which is a state in the US, quarter of their revenue comes from tourism. So tourism could be a big revenue for India. So if you have to compete globally, you have to have a systematic way to compete and create your own winning strategy. Let me give you high level what we do, right? So if you approach us for our customers, what we do is we look into the market fundamentals such as growth prospect, profitability, technology, entry barrier, and we look into the competitive intensity and sustainability of the business. You know, does it offer one-time growth or is it non-stop growth potential, right? Then we look into your core strength, you know, where you do better than your competition. Knowing that, based on your customer access, R&D skill set, technology, and everything, we identify your competitive advantage. Then once we know the market fundamentals and core strength, we look into the low-hanging fruits for your company, right? You know, we develop the screening criteria, very systematic analysis. We ask a lot of questions to find the most attractive opportunities for you, and it could be organic opportunities, it could be M&A opportunities. So we do that target screening also, and then find out, you know, why and how a particular acquisition can benefit you. If you are looking for M&A, for organic, we look into that, hey, which are the areas where you can compete based on the price, product performance, and other parameters, right? So also we need to innovate low cost products for 91% of India population, right, which has less than $10,000 asset. So in terms of domestic production wise, you know, we need to target some innovative products for high income categories such as luxury car, appliances, gadgets. For low income people, we need to develop low cost products to satisfy their basic needs. For example, GE, right, they develop cheaper medical equipment and device for India, which is more than 40% cheaper than US market price. So that's what we need to do based on our demographics of Indian population. So I will give you some sample of our market report. We did a study for UK government. You know, they wanted to identify how can they compete with the global companies in certain segments, because UK has higher cost of labor, higher infrastructure cost, rental space is very high energy prices. So how do you compete with China and India for those kind of applications? So we did a study. You can download that report by clicking this link. It will tell you what we did for them, you know, and this basically is free of cost, no cost to you. You can have access to that because the government paid us, you know, for this project, and typically this kind of projects cost in hundreds of thousands of dollars. For this report on the India growth potential, right, can it hit 10 trillion economy? You know, the 4 strategies, you can get all the access to all those opportunities. There are pretty significant number of slides, 80 to 100 slides filled with growth ideas, you know, and we have spent hundreds of hours, and the cost of this is $499, pretty insignificant compared to if you do a consulting project. And Middle Eastern companies, Asian companies, various regional companies can benefit from this report to identify the growth opportunities. And in this report, you know, we have discussed all those 4 angles, right? Export-led growth, import substitution growth, FDI-led growth, and what could be the domestic growth. So we have discussed that. And in conclusion, there are 3 main conclusions. Export creates ripple effect in economy, right? Almost 4 to 5 times increase in GDP. So that's the mantra: export, export, export. So that's the message I want to give to Indian companies as well as everybody, that we need to really think about export and think about how do we grow export business to hit that target of 10 trillion economy even more, right? And we have talked about the 4 growth strategies. I would say focus on the export, and then third is the acquire foreign companies, develop trading companies, target retailers, distributors for good customer access. With that, thank you very much. Namaste. And also, I would request to subscribe to this Mega Insights channel, which offers insights on business, innovation, work-life balance, and so please visit us again. Thanks again. Namaste.